welcome to Spotlight on Education. I'm Dr. Jon Kopko, Superintendent of the East Brunswick Public Schools, and your host for the program. Today I'm in the studio with two very special guests, Dr. Miriam Staloff, who is our District Supervisor of English and Staff Development, and Mr. Philip Caccavale, who is our District Supervisor of Reading, Testing, Adult and Community Education. Our topic today is going to be electronic bookshelf and how it really integrates into our language arts program, which we in the district call Integrated Language Arts, or ILA. Before we do begin to discuss electronic bookshelf, what I'd like to do is provide our audience with a brief overview of the progress of the ILA program in the district. And Miriam, I'm wondering if we could start with you, and perhaps you could give our viewers a definition of what Integrated Language Arts is.
Of course. Integrated Language Arts, or ILA as we call it in our district, is really an approach to teaching and learning which stresses the interconnectedness of all of the language arts: reading, writing, speaking, listening, thinking, viewing, and technology. The program focuses on both content and discrete skills. What makes ILA really special, however, is that instruction is based on natural learning situations, and it actually occurs in three ways. First, what the teacher does to the class. This is what we would call direct instruction, in which she might deal with a small group, with an individual, or with a large group to directly instruct them in ways which most parents, most of us are familiar with when we think about our own school days. A second way in which she delivers instruction is with students. In this case, she acts in a collegial capacity, responding to writing, for example, in small groups, in writers' workshops, and also in reading and discussing materials. The third way in which she delivers instruction is for students, in which she facilitates or sets up learning situations and the kids move with it. For example, learning centers in which children are sent to work independently and then to deliver some kind of a performance or a product by which the teacher can judge if learning has actually occurred.
When did this program begin in the East Brunswick Public Schools, and even more importantly, why did we decide to initiate such a program?
Well, the reasons are based mainly on the idea that we're always looking for ways to improve. So back in the 1980s, to draw on our history, we had already adopted a reading program that was based on quality literature rather than the Dick, Jane, and Spot, again, which we are all familiar with from our own school days, or perhaps I'm dating myself. By 1991 or 1992, we formalized the program, allotting large blocks of instructional time to something that we called ILA, in which all of the language arts were integrated into one program rather than a discrete block of time for spelling, a discrete block of time for handwriting, etc., etc. We did this because research has been able to tell us how children learn best, and that is through a natural, realistic way in which they write about what they've read, they read about what they have written, they talk with one another as well as with adults, and they draw many of their own conclusions. We're looking to integrate the experiences of life and build on them, kind of making hooks of knowledge rather than to teach isolated skills. Why? Because it works better. Furthermore, in this program, we knew that the books and materials that we were using were far more appealing to children. And we can tell by figures in library takeout rates, both in the school libraries as well as here in East Brunswick's library, that children are reading more, they're talking more about it, and they're enjoying it a great deal more. And finally, since we have as a goal to make lifelong learners, literate learners, we wanted to give them the best foundation that we could, and that's what this program does.
Phil, what effect has the ILA program really had on the achievements of our students?
Well, as we walk through the schools, we see lots of good examples of the achievement of our students. We see lots of interesting compositions, bulletin boards, books written by children. The children are more enthusiastic, the teachers are more enthusiastic about what they're doing. In terms of standardized tests, I've prepared 5 charts that will help us take a look at what's been going on. The charts represent 1994 and 1995. The first chart represents our students' progress in reading. Our students' progress is the red column. The national progress is the green column. If we look at grade 2, we see that the average student in the United States is reading on the 50th percentile. The average student in East Brunswick is reading on the 73rd percentile. That's considerably above. The 50th percentile would mean that's grade level achievement. If we look at grade 3, we look again, 50th percentile nationally, 82nd percentile for our kids. Again, our students are scoring considerably above the expectation for the grade level. Same thing is true in grade 4 in 1994, as well as in grade 5 in reading. Let's turn to the next year. We look at 1995, and we see the same thing going on. We see in grade 2, we had a 50th percentile, which is the national norm, the average. Second grade child reading in the 50th percentile reads a second grade book. Our children, 71st percentile as an average. Third grade, 50th percentile for the nation, 79th percentile for our children. Fourth grade, 50th percentile for the nation again, 79th percentile. And the same thing in the 5th grade, as you can see, 50th percentile, 75th percentile for our children. So across the board in reading, these 2 grade levels, we see that our children have remained consistently above grade level. Now we go to the language arts piece. Here we have the chart that is drawn in a different way because the differences are much greater. If we look at 2nd grade in 1994, we see the 50th percentile here again in green, which is the national percentile, which is the average. This child is doing 2nd grade work, expected. And look at where our red goes, all the way up to the 85th percentile. That's a considerable distance from the 50th percentile. So our children are really achieving very, very well in grade 2 in 94. In grade 3, a similar kind of thing happens. Here again, we have the 50th percentile as the national norm, the average, and the 91st percentile for our kids. In grade 4, 50, 88. In grade 5, 50, and 87. Now let's look at 95, which is the second year that we're comparing. Here again, in grade 2, the average grade level achievement is the 50th percentile. East Brunswick students, the 89th percentile. Wonderful. In grade 3, the 50th percentile, grade level achievement, the 94th percentile for our children. There are only 100 possible percentile points. We'd be perfect, absolutely perfect if it was 100, and that's amazing. Here again, 4th grade, the 50th percentile for the nation, the 91st percentile for our children, and in the 5th grade, the 50th percentile, and the 89th percentile for our students. These are remarkable results, I think, in terms of achievement. All right, now I'd like to share 2 other charts with you. They show the distinction between our children's achievement and their aptitude. This is only for 2nd and 5th grade because we only give the test of cognitive skills in 2nd and in 5th grade. The test of cognitive skills gives us a score in the end that is very similar to an IQ score. Now here we have 2nd grade in this particular chart. The red again represents our students' achievement in East Brunswick. The green here represents their aptitudes. So here again, if we look at reading, we see that the aptitude of the children was in the 60th percentile, but they achieved in the 63rd percentile. If we look at language, we see the 57th percentile and achievement in the 76th percentile. In math, we see the 58th percentile is the anticipated level of achievement. Our students actually achieve at the 78th percentile. For a total score in 2nd grade, we expect from our students' test of cognitive skills that they would score in the 59th percentile across the board. But instead, in the 2nd grade, they score in the 73rd percentile, which is really quite amazing. Now let's take a look at the 5th grade for 1995. Same thing, achievement versus aptitude. If we look at reading here, we see that we expected them to score in the 55th percentile, but they actually scored in the 66th percentile. In language, we see the 57th percentile, but our children scored in the 76th percentile. In mathematics, the 58th percentile was our expected level of achievement. Our students scored in the 69th percentile. And for a total on the entire test, we expected them, based upon their test of cognitive skills score, to achieve in the 58th percentile, but they actually achieved in the 72nd percentile. This seems to indicate that the longer they're in school, the better they are. The more we have them in school, the better they become. And these are really extraordinary results once again. I think we should be really proud of the achievement of our students.
Well, it's really gratifying to know that the program is succeeding. Now I'd like to turn to electronic bookshelf. What exactly does this involve, Miriam?
Well, First of all, it's a major thrust into technology that is dedicated specifically to the language arts. It is a software program that we use in grades 1 through 4 at the present time, in which youngsters go to the computer to keep track of their own independent reading. Students are encouraged to read from a selected list of very high quality children's literature. After reading a book, the child goes to the computer and takes a brief comprehension test. He or she gets feedback for right and for wrong answers and has an opportunity to correct some of those wrong answers. The machine automatically scores the test and then stores the information. When the teacher wishes to, she can generate a student score for the individual test or all the tests that that particular student has taken. She can also generate a record for her entire class. What a wonderful way to check comprehension and to monitor reading selections. For example, there was a youngster last year who read 36 books by R.L. Stine. Well, he must have enjoyed those books very much, but it really is up to the teacher to make sure that every child has an opportunity to experience a wide range of selections, and also the teacher needs to know that the child understands what he or she is reading. So this is a wonderful system for that.
Phil, what are the advantages of having this program?
Well, I think the biggest advantage is that we know from research that the more students read, the better readers they become, the better they achieve in school. So this certainly encourages students to read a variety of different books from a variety of different genres. It encourages individuals to read as well as small groups to read. At the same time, as Miriam mentioned, the students' work is constantly checked to make sure they're comprehending what they're reading, because to read without comprehension is absolute nonsense. But when we see this in the classroom, we see students choosing lots of different kinds of books and reading and becoming more proficient readers. It's interesting too, there's some interesting research about reading that says that 80% of the books in this country are read by 10% of the people. And that's really kind of discouraging for someone who's dedicated a major part of his life to reading. In addition to that, if you take the entire newscast on television for a half hour and you reduce what's said to print, you have 2 columns in the New York Times or the Washington Post, which is really not very much text, and our kids are not exposed to really a lot of text. So I think a program like this provides lots and lots of text, and it encourages our children to be literate, which is really important, rather than illiterate, which is a new term that I've heard, or illiterate, for students who can read but choose not to read. So we're really encouraging reading on a wide variety of topics and with great frequency, which is really important to me.
Well, we have tapes related to students' work with the electronic bookshelf. Would you tell us about the classes we're about to see?
Okay, we have 2 classes. We have Gary Mastrangelo, who's a 4th grade teacher at Bow Monroe, and he's going to explain how he uses the electronic bookshelf, and we'll see his class actually working on it. Next, we'll see Betty Squirk, library media specialist at Central School, giving a book talk to a class at the Media Center, which then will encourage those students to choose one of the books and to get going with some reading.
It's great. We'll take a look at those tapes now.
Well, in my classroom, the electronic bookshelf is used in the morning, in the first 10 or 15 minutes of the class. As you can see, there's 4 different groups in my class. So as one group is doing one thing, another group is doing another. One of the groups will go on electronic bookshelf, and each student takes an individual quiz. It'll last for anywhere between 10 to 15 minutes.
Now, do you do this every day?
All but Fridays. What happens is there's a schedule of Monday through Thursday, and then we kind of use Friday as if anybody was absent or was out of class for whatever reason, then they get to, it's kind of make up Friday, and that's when they go on.
Now, this is all part of the Integrated Language Arts program. How does the electronic bookshelf fit into this?
It's a self-assessment for the students. It's a computer disk with a list of 15 books on it. So any book that the student might have read on their own, they now come to the electronic bookshelf and they can program the book, and they can actually take a quiz on a book that they've read. So it gives the students an idea of how well they know the book, and then it also gives the teacher an assessment of how much the students read.
When did this start being used in your class?
It started probably the turn of the new year in 1996. I started using it on a regular basis, and the students are up to about anywhere in between 10 to 15 quizzes apiece. Each student gets on at least once a week, and they've gone up to almost a dozen and a half books.
Do they have any trouble learning how to use it?
They really didn't. They had no trouble at all. As what I said when I went around the district and did the workshops, that if your students can read, then it's a very easy, an easy program to use, because it is self-explanatory. Everything is right on the screen, and if you just follow the directions on the screen, whether it be drive A or B, and that's really it, and then you're into the program itself.
You did training for staff members in other schools?
I did training for 7 other elementary schools in the district, and grades 1 through 4, and now everyone hopefully knows how to use it, and hopefully they are using it.
Do the students choose the books they want to read?
The students choose the books. There's a list of books. We actually have 2 lists, a list of books that this library has and doesn't have, and the students are able to choose any of the books that we have here at Bound, and they read the book during sustained silent reading, and then they quiz themselves during the day.
Great, well, thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay, boys and girls, you know that you've been working with the electronic bookshelf, not only in here but in your classrooms. And you know that in here, what I'm responsible for doing is getting you interested in the books. So I'm doing book talks to describe the books, and that's what we're going to be doing today. And in your classroom, once you've read the books, you're working with the software, the electronic bookshelf software. So I'm just curious to find out, as a feedback, what some of you think about the books that you've been doing. Who would like to share their experiences with us? Carrie, can you tell us about the book that you've been reading?
It's called Me and Katie the Pest, and there's a girl and her younger sister. The younger sister is always winning awards, and Wendy is the older sister, and she never won an award. And there's a horse race going on, and she won an award for 3rd place.
Mm-hmm. How'd you like the book?
It was really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Have you taken the test on it yet?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. How'd you do?
I got all of them right.
Wow, that's great. Okay, who else would like to share with us? Harrison?
Okay. It's about a boy who wanted to be
What's the title of your book?
Bobby Baseball. It's about a boy who wanted to be in the major leagues, and he wanted to be the pitcher, and his dad let him be the pitcher, and he won 3 games for his team. But then when his dad pulled him out for an inning or something or so, he had a tantrum, and his dad benched him for 3 games, and then he got to play for him in like 1 or 2 more games, and he found out that that wasn't his talent, and he's going to be a writer. Because after all his games, he writes about his day.
Oh. Could you relate to that book? Get something out of that?
Yeah.
A book that I've read recently that I really enjoyed was There's a Boy in the Girl's Bathroom by Louis Sacker. And he's the same author who wrote the Wayside School Stories. And in this story, Bradley Chalkers is really a misfit. He just sits in the back of the 5th grade class, Mrs. Upple's 5th grade class, doesn't do his work, doesn't pay attention, and a large part of the day he just stares at the chart which has the children's name in the class with the stars next to their names. Now unfortunately, because he never does his homework, there's never any stars next to his name. And this has gotten so bad that he's known in the school, even in other classes, as the monster. So a new student arrives in the school. His name is Jeff Fishkin, and he comes from Washington, D.C., and he sits next to Bradley, and he wants to try to make friends with them. And during this time, Bradley and Jeff both go to visit the new guidance counselor, Carla Davis, for advice. And some of the problems they have is that a group of girls are very interested in Jeff, but not Bradley. And they go and they bother Jeff, they run after him, and at one point Jeff gets so upset with them that there gets to be a confrontation where they're pushing one another, and one of the girl gives Jeff a black eye. Now Jeff is really embarrassed about this, that a girl should give him a black eye. So he tells his friends that Bradley did it. Now Bradley has...
Miriam, what lies ahead for integrated language arts?
Well, this fourth year of our program's thrust has started to concentrate intensively on assessment, and we're going to be continuing assessment practices and considerations into the next year. We will be taking our portfolio, our literacy portfolio, into the second grade. Of course, we're going to continue to acquire an even wider variety of quality materials, and we're hoping to employ technology to far greater extents than we are using technology now.
Well, one final question for both of you. How can parents really help their children improve their skills in integrated language arts, or language arts in general?
Well, to sum it up, I'd like to suggest that parents need to value and model literacy in the home itself. And by that I mean use standard English when you speak with your children. Write often yourself. Lists, diaries, journals, reports, letters, memos, things that you need to write for work. Let children see that that's happening. Encourage children to write often themselves. Letters of thank you to grandma, very important social skill as well as the writing skill. I also suggest that parents read and listen to their children's writing when the children are little, to give lots of celebration of the children's efforts. Later on, acknowledge and celebrate children's efforts.
Phil?
Okay. We know that the more children read, the better readers they become, the more proficient. It's really important, though, when we're working with our children, it's to make it a pleasant and enjoyable experience for the children. You know, don't say, I want you to read for 5 hours today. You know, make it a pleasurable kind of thing. Discuss the books with the child. Ask the child to predict, what do you think is going to happen next in the book? If a student is having a child rather is having difficulty reading a part of the book, help them. Show them the way to understand, to read better. Let them show you that they can learn from you. And as a parent, you know, encourage them as best you can. Praise them when they do things correctly, and make sure that they're feeling real good about it. Share a personal reaction to the book. You know, I like this book because, or I don't like this book because. And encourage your child to share their personal. You know, we don't all read things that we like all the time. While you're reading the book with your child, ask them some questions about the book. You know, what do you think is going to happen next? What do you think is going to happen with this character? Is this character like anyone else you know? And when you're asking questions, allow some wait time. You know, don't say, I want you to answer this immediately. Say, think about it. What do you think is really going to happen? Why do you think that's going to happen? You know, why questions encourage children to sort of really think, and encourage high-level thinking skills, which is part of what we're doing in our integrated language arts. And point out the relationships between what we're reading and our lives. Now, how is what's happening to this little boy in the story similar to what's happening to you? You've had a pet. Did you feel the same way about the pet that, you know, the little boy in the story feels about the pet? And really important part of the whole thing is to choose some good books, you know, books that children like and that they're interested in. In addition to that, take them to the library and allow them to choose books that they like. And don't discourage them. If what they want to read is, you know, magazines about cars or boats or, you know, whatever, in the beginning, fine, let them do that. You know, just get them reading, and then we can sort of move them into a little bit better kinds of literature as we work with them. But most of all, make it a pleasant, wonderful experience for the children and encourage them. Okay?
Well, thanks so much to both of you for being here, and I'd like to take this opportunity to commend you and also your staff members for the excellent, excellent work that's been done with the Language Arts program. To our audience, I'd like to thank you for watching and hope you'll be back with us again when we have our final program for the 1995-96 school year next month.